Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cybersecurity Advisors Network Secure in Mind podcast and video conversation series. This is a video channel that's dedicated to informing and educating and working together with our stakeholders, helping interesting people with some sort of tie to the cybersecurity sector across various industries and geographies who have something relevant and interesting to say to get the word out. As a reminder, the Cybersecurity Advisors Network is an international not-for-profit trust network of information security and related professionals working in technology, policy, management, governance, what have you. Again, anything relevant to the cybersecurity and broader information security field. And today I'm joined by Florian Muntner and Dr. Dzsinich, incidentally one of our board members. And we're going to talk a little bit about two areas of activity relevant to the academic development of talent and projects for the cybersecurity sector and its capabilities. The first part of this interview or conversation, if you will, is going to be focused on higher education of cybersecurity professionals with an eye to helping to improve the talent development of new entrants into the industry. And in the second part, we're going to talk about an ongoing privacy project that Greg and Florian are both working on at Emlyon Business School in Lyon, France. I'm switching it to a French accent. With that said, I'd like to give you guys the chance to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your academic background, your professional background, the school itself, and maybe a quick word or two about some of the main projects that you're working on. So maybe Greg, you want to start off here? This is your team. You're the professor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is watching, and thank you for setting up the podcast and running communication on behalf of CyAN, John. So, yes, we are coming from the Emlyon Business School based in Lyon, France. And Emlyon has a very highly valued cybersecurity and defense management MSc that is practically taking 3 semesters for the students to practically accomplish. There are some students who are taking 4 semesters because of the master's thesis work at the end, and this is not decreasing the value of the education. This is practically showing the sign that students are doing deep dives in certain areas of cyber. I think why Emlyon is different from other cybersecurity related high-level education projects in the MSc field is that the education is very much allowing students to do these focus-oriented projects, deep dives in certain areas. We are considering ourselves as professionals, but our qualification should be most important coming from the success level of our students. We are enablers, and this kind of an enabling attitude is something that is giving a difference compared to other schools in the field, other high-level educational institutions. And in my point of view, Emlyon is not simply giving a very high standard as being one of the top 40 worldwide ranking practically, but also we are showing it that cyber is very much in the focus of European educational institutions as well, no matter the fact that we are trying to give a global knowledge to our students. So for example, at the course which I am running in Lyon about cyber and numeric sovereignty, I am regularly involving guest star lecturers, guest star educators to my courses. They attend the courses for a short time, but they give the global touch for the whole project. And this is very important that no matter the fact that we are based in Lyon, but not only the students come from numerous other countries. I think this year it was 11 nationalities in the class, but also we have involved over 10 guest stars in this double semester and giving this international touch. from Australia to Asia, up to Japan, up to through Europe, at least, and also involving the United States of America into the classrooms of Emlyon. This is why we believe this is something which is very different. So on behalf of Emlyon, that is the case. And from my side, I'm a adjunct professor in Emlyon. I'm a contract professor at Emlyon, and practically I am supporting the success story with the best of my capabilities for the second year here with the team. I am invited to lead this by Professor Nicholas Saban, who is also a good friend of ours and also an honored member of the Cybersecurity Advisors Network. I believe its angle of growing ourselves in the academic field for the Cybersecurity Advisors Network is quite highly important. And last but not least, I'm an attorney in the field of cyber data protection and criminal law, acting in the base of my Budapest office with the English American law firm Eversh. That's where I'm.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And Florian, if you'd like to give us a brief, you gave a few words about yourself before. If you'd like to give us an overview of where you're from, what your background is, what you're doing right now.
Of course. So I'm a student, and I'm from Austria, and I came to Emlyon because I'm very interested, or I was before, and now I'm even more interested in cybersecurity. Before I came to Lyon, I studied business informatics, so there was already some interdisciplinary approach in my past, but now Emlyon, I think, is the next level. So I was very interested in cybersecurity, and I really liked also the international approach of Emlyon. As Dr. Dzsinich already mentioned, he invited professionals, and we also had like international trips, which was also very interesting because you could notice the differences and also the similarities between the different countries. And I really enjoyed that we had the contact with professionals. So this was very nice, and because you could really see what's important and what's like the real life of cybersecurity, I would say. And what I also really enjoyed at Emlyon was the close contact, for example, to the gendarmerie. So this is the French military police. This was also interesting because there we had the chance to learn more about like cybercrime and what is at the moment really relevant in this field. And at the moment, I'm searching for an apartment in Frankfurt because I'm going there to work as a cybersecurity consultant. So this is after Emlyon, and now I'm writing my thesis next to this also, or I'm thinking of a topic. So I'm at the beginning stage, I would say. Yeah,
we've got plenty of topics to suggest. So that's a pretty hefty and impressive workload. So some very impressive CVs there. One of the reasons I was excited to do this is Greg is always very vocal in his support of the academic work of his team and of the school's program as well. And one of my repeated rants that you'll hear from me very frequently is the absolutely rotten situation regarding cybersecurity education as a whole, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in North America, whether it's in Asia Pacific, Australia. There is very, very, very rarely a coherent approach to whether it's getting, hardcore technical geeks, whether it's getting people with a more kind of a business focus, management focus, educated in the subtleties and the breadth of what it takes to be a cybersecurity professional. Something that I firmly believe is a hugely complex, hugely broad topic in an equally complex and broad industry. So maybe in whatever order you like, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you see nowadays and some of the advances that you think have been made in how not only, your school, but generally academia has approached this challenge and tried to work to start filling this often quoted lack of cybersecurity professionals. Have you seen a change in attitudes and opportunities? Do you see more of a willingness to work with universities, and are universities generally, graduate, undergraduate, more adaptable to the needs of industry?
I think we are going in a good direction because in the beginning, where cybersecurity became a buzzword, right, like 20 years ago, there were some focused courses which you could attend generally postgraduate. And after that, there was, when this came very, into a very trendy case and situation, practically everybody was doing some kind of a cyber course. So it became somehow like the typical IT buzzword, like cloud, for example, or like 25 years ago, email services or software development. And now again, there are some narrow pipelines of education, which is proving itself that there are diverse disciplines which can be followed. Let me quote Jean-Christophe Le Toquin, our Cybersecurity Advisors Network founding father and president. What Jean-Christophe always says that cybersecurity requires a multidisciplinary attitude. So this is one of the most interesting points because, for example, at Emlyon, how we're looking at the class and how our top-level students are setting together is that they're coming from various backgrounds, and this is really great to see that we have at least 7 different disciplines at the class at the school, and all the 7 disciplines are giving a different flavor, a different solution attitude to any kind of a problem we solve. Now, for example, one of the newest disciplines is, for example, communication or cybersecurity, how internal and outside communication requires to be working. For example, if there is any kind of a data breach, how do you manage it from that perspective? So it's not technology only. It's law, it's technology, it's business, it's consulting, it's future research, right? Because we also need to be looking forward and envision what kind of changes we should be getting ready for or being able to change for practically. That's a critical one. And that comes in, again, one of the interesting points, that is ethics and philosophy. Because as soon as development is getting more and more into the hands of AI, ethics and philosophy and how we should be serving the greater good of supporting mankind's abilities in the digital world, it truly requires our systems to act ethically and on the roads of good philosophy.
That's a good observation. And I want to touch a little bit more on the kind of the multidisciplinary aspects in a little bit. Florian, maybe over to you. You mentioned before that your academic background, your undergraduate was in business informatics. Maybe some of our, especially North American and Australian English-speaking viewers may not know this as a concept so much, something that you see quite frequently in continental Europe, especially. Speaking as somebody who comes from a totally non-technology background and kind of accidentally slipped into IT and then security, how was this transition to security from your undergraduate background? Where was kind of the hook that led you to security as a field, and how do you think various parts of your undergraduate or even previous experience prepared you for this?
So as I said, like business informatics, and every time I tell it, I notice also the differences, how people understand it, because it's not a very famous concept. I totally agree. And I think what really brought me to cybersecurity was a course in my undergraduate. It was like network security, and I really enjoyed this course. And it was a very basic course about the principles. And then I looked for cybersecurity masters, and I found Emlyon, and for me, Emlyon was the first choice because they also had this approach of also bringing in business, because it's a business school, and I thought that's exactly what can fit my profile. So I also had, like before, a bit IT, a bit business, and then the masters. It would be great to continue this. And I also want to add what Dr. Dzsinich said. I think it was very interesting also because of the many disciplines we had in the class, that very interesting discussions and conversations sparked because some people, for example, really wanted to talk about ethics, and this got really exciting. And also about the nationalities, as we said before, 11, I believe, were in the class. And so, for example, many topics, I think we will talk about this later too, about the instant messengers. So, for example, this topic, it's very different from country to country which instant messengers are used mainly. So this was also quite an interesting topic, because you could also see the differences also in the security or privacy sector.
So you mentioned before, maybe continuing that thread, you mentioned before that you're going to go work as a security consultant. So when I went to business school, it was information security was weird. It was INSEAD, and it's got its own focus, but there was no discussion of it, right? And it was a bit frustrating to see that lack of connect between technology and business. And I always thought it would be interesting to kind of take that experience and learn to talk business to the technologists and vice versa. And we've seen over the last, let's say, 10 years, a growth in the understanding that the CISO is a business function, not a technology function, that cybersecurity risk has to be tied to underlying business risk, use the same metrics, etc. How going, what kind of security consulting are you going into, and how does this academic kind of hybrid business technology experience prepare you for that?
Yeah, so I believe that it really helps me, this interdisciplinary approach of the school, or it will help me, hopefully. I haven't started there, but I think exactly what you mentioned, that you can talk to both of these parties, so also to the technical staff, because we have some knowledge in this area too, and also to the business people, because they probably then have to make the decision at the end if it's the right decision to invest that much in security or not. And maybe as a consultant, you have to bring it up correctly and explain what this means, because of course in cybersecurity, as always, the balance between security and also how much money you can spend. So you have to find the right level of both investing and also not over investment in security, right? This is always a very difficult trade-off.
So part of the objective of this particular conversation for me is to also to give some pointers and to inspire people, again, from not necessarily a hardcore tech background, to understand just the sheer volume and the diversity of areas of cybersecurity careers that they can go into. Greg, you're a lawyer. You fit right into the profile of the typical, old school CyAN member. You've been with us since the beginning, of being kind of high level, high value, policy oriented. So where, again, you said you work with a lot of, you work with a lot of privacy, a lot of research, a lot of policy related activities. Where's that hook? How'd you get from law to security?
Yes. So obviously, law is a fantastic tool. It's like one of the best Swiss Army knives, like engineering, for example, or medicine in the academic fields. Why? Because The discipline of legal education and the content of legal education, in my point of view, is very much like Microsoft opening Windows. And obviously, these windows should be enabling the students to find their best possible way. And students need to find their usefulness with the tool set of discipline. Within law, obviously, data protection, IT, and criminal law were my most important enablers. And here, since majority of crimes, for example, in the world, generally speaking, is somehow connected to technological devices. Even, for example, when we're talking about a car theft, if the criminals are communicating with each other, or a kind of another organized crime, or, for example, drugs, or classical digital crimes, where, for example, copyright infringing activities are considered if you're downloading illegal copyrighted content. So here, I think this was quite obvious in my point of view, and the whole thing really started with my openness for technology when I first received my Commodore 64 computer in 1991. And practically somehow...
Stop it, please. You're making me feel old.
Really, Commodores were really fantastic, and the whole thing is going back to Wizard of War, one of the best games ever. I enjoyed, excluding Fist, and obviously combining law and technology were due to this. And in my point of view, and coming from the area of law, obviously regulating and respecting the value and giving respect to even human values or financial values or any kind of another like national values. They need to be protected by law, and this is a civilized way of enforcing rights and obligations, and basically building, because if you have firm fundamentals for society, that is protected by law. This is how I entered into this world. And even like, for example, Jean-Christophe Le Toquin is also a lawyer by education. We have got numerous lawyers in CyAN. Hein Dries from the Netherlands, he's an excellent advisor. We did a lot of projects with the Council of Europe or European Commission, or many other countries. And practically saying it can be very clear that we are humble enough to say that without other different members of CyAN, we could have not grown into an international organization the size of like 100 people, covering 20 countries in the last, I would say, very close to 8 years. In the autumn, it will be 8 years of time. And with this way of applying two very open disciplines, that we are all the same, but we're all different. So this means that within the community, there are, yes, multidisciplinary professionals, but we share the same value of building something which is good. And they're open to receive feedback from various knowledge sources and parts of the world, or anything else which is growing us. So, in my point of view, the pure fact that I am a lawyer is not as important as being a member of an organization that is capable to grow itself by its diversity of sciences.
And there's a, but I wanted some, can you hear me? Some echo somewhere. What I wanted to add to that is, I mean, especially in the EU right now, well, mostly in the EU, but not only, we've got some amazing regulations coming up, the DORA, NIS2, the Cyber Resilience Act, on top of GDPR and the Cybersecurity Act already, that are going to be, I think, guiding lights for a lot of the world, and a lot of countries in the UAE, Singapore, Australia, US. They're also, developing tremendous amounts of cybersecurity regulation. So just specifically on the topic of law, that's going to be a very, very interesting area with crossover. what I find a little sad, and I say this, we just started a mentorship program for CyAN as a pilot. And one of my mentees is a woman in the US who has a PhD in communications. So again, not a cybersecurity expert by training, and is now doing a postdoc project at MIT Sloan Business School. Again, a business school, not a cybersecurity school. And what I find really sad is that in the past, we've very often seen management who may come from a technology field or a pure business field who doesn't necessarily understand the value and the very extreme and growing need for these kinds of crossover between non-tech and tech. I want a geek for my security operations center. That's clear. I want a coder. It's clear. I want a risk manager who understands business and regulatory aspects because of the legal background or communications background, who can also talk security. Right. So I think this is going to be something worth keeping an eye on, especially since all three of us on this call have exactly that kind of crossover skill set. So, I like I said, part of the idea here is to kind of give some inspiration to people thinking about entering the career, thinking of entering the field, whether it's by cross training, whether it's by going into academic programs, and don't only focus on cybersecurity training. So just kind of a call to action. What I like to switch over is let's talk a little bit about what you guys are doing. Let's talk about project stuff. Right? We can talk about generalities for hours, but I think it would be useful to give an idea of, Greg, you've got a project team. Florian, you're working on this. What are you doing? What is it? Why is it important? Why is it cool? Why is it different? Give me a brief overview. What have you?
Yes. Let me put this into context. So Emlyon is not simply an MSc institution giving the classic lexical knowledge, which I am very keen of to hand over to my students. Florian knows that exactly that. I can provide exams which are very much knowledge focused, and people really have to use their human memory instead of open books, because that's what I believe in. That should be the ground of creativity. But I am very much also open for skill-orientated education. And I think what Professor CyAN built up in Emlyon is truly reflecting this. So this is why I feel at home in this institution. And one of the reasons for that is the practical way how we can grow our students in the latest stage of the education. And we have a so-called an in-company education project, or it's a practice, it's a stagiaire-based education. And in this slide, I was contacted by Professor CyAN, and he asked whether I would like to do a research team on the topic with four students about privacy. And I said, it is very timely to give a very good example to the world about academia, that academia can deliver absolutely independent reviews on certain technologies. And in my point of scientific understanding is that combining usefulness for humankind and also using the most recent technology and applying the buzzwords like privacy, encryption, and obviously communication, yes, it is really the time to do something for privacy research. So I have built up a team of 4 people of this year's class, and 4 great students are combined in the privacy assessment project. And since December 2022 until end of April 2023, this legion, how I call them, has built up on my coaching website and did a research on privacy-oriented check applications, which are absolutely tools of anybody you meet up in your life and yourselves every day, right? And we wanted to give a feedback how these 4 MSc students see these kind of platforms. how we can practically compare them to each other. And as a result, by end of April, we have introduced the so-called privacy assessment.com website, and we have summarized 34 chat applications based on various metrics and tried to combine them and compare them to each other without saying that which is the best, but allowing the people to understand this and in a privacy respecting manner to basically analyze what is the best for them. But I think it is most appropriate if I hand over the word to Florian to say a few words on the project and also the team itself.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Dzsinich. So it was really a pleasure for me working in this field because privacy is a hobby. I always say I always try to use open source operating systems on my phone and on my laptop, and so it's also a big topic. Or before this project, I already researched for myself a little bit, and it's very interesting because there are so many chat applications, and you can see like over 30, and there are still more. And the amazing thing is there are a lot of chat applications that are not really famous. And I think it's very interesting to also investigate these options because there are so many different, as you can see on the website and in our research, there are so many things that differ. And I really believe there is one good application for everyone. And I think it's important to show that to the public that there's not only WhatsApp or like the most famous chat applications. There are also other options that maybe value your privacy more than some applications. And I think it's very easy to download another application and start chatting with your friends and family or with your business partners over other application. And I think, I can go more into the topic. So, for example, you always have to check. What I noticed really is for example, the business model. So this is again this interdisciplinary approach. So it's not only technical. We tried also to look at the business model and say, just look at the business model. Doesn't make sense. So, for example, if a company only works through donations, it could be like you could question it. Is it sustainable to sustain a company, a big it's a messaging company only with donations? And then you could ask yourself how many people really donate to this platform. And these are also questions I think are important to ask when you decide for an instant messaging platform or in general. And we also noticed that some companies say they are very secretive and they are very private, but actually, when we looked at the application, we also checked if there are trackers in the app, and then we noticed, wow, it's full of trackers, even though they say on their website and advertise like we are very private and no information gets out.
I find it I mean, as a cybersecurity professional, I find it fascinating that, people in this industry are still using WhatsApp voluntarily. I mean, just if you're going to use something convenient, use Signal, but for God's sakes. So I think that's a very timely, I think a timely project and a good set of outputs. Are you guys also looking at, so you're looking at, I assume, kind of the open source, the open free ones. What else are you looking at? Threema, Mattermost. Okay.
Yeah. So I can go. I can say a few. So for example, Threema, as you said, was very interesting because the business model is so easy to understand. But what we noticed there is it's open source. That's very nice. But then, for example, it's a centralized solution. So this could be for some people a problem because even though it's open source, it's all good and there's a good business model, but it's still a centralized solution. So there still could be a problem. And then, for example, sessions is also a very interesting project, which is a decentralized solution, which also works with onion routing. So this could be interesting for some. But when we tested it, like maybe it's different now, but then we noticed, for example, also, okay, it's a great idea, but maybe it doesn't work as well as other products. So this should also be kept in mind, because if you use instant messaging app, you want it to work very well, right? So this is also, should be considered the performance. And we also looked, for example, which is also a very interesting project, Prior. So this is a peer-to-peer messaging. It even allows you to message over Bluetooth, I believe. So it's very nice because I think we brought some nice projects also up. And if you're interested in instant messaging, you could check it out and find maybe some which aren't very known.
We looked at Threema as a possible replacement for Mattermost for CyAN, and I know the CEO Manuel from a previous project we worked together on is one of the people I would trust most in that industry in terms of respect for privacy. But it was so hard to implement, for us not having time with a not-for-profit organization. Definitely worth a look. I actually want to hear your thoughts about comparative features, because we need something for CyAN as well. So I would imagine, this is a very timely topic, because you've got on the one side you've got common usage, everyday usage. Your people who use WhatsApp, Signal, maybe hopefully not Telegram, for just average people talking to average people. On the other hand, you've got mainly the business users who are using it internally. Yeah. So I would assume that especially when comparing more, let's say, managed solutions, you also were getting inputs from a lot of users in the corporate world. Is that a good assumption? You were talking to companies, getting their impressions, or how are you collecting information about these apps?
So I would want to say something about Threema also. So I really like that you don't need to put your email or your phone number. So this is very good. It's also a point for Threema. But as you said, that's true. There is definitely a difference. We didn't question companies, but we checked, because some solutions don't even offer like a business use, and that's why we didn't.
So your focus is more end user privacy, right? Regardless of who the end user is. Okay, that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about the methodology that you use to collect information about these, to compare these?
Yeah, of course. So we divided the instant messaging between us as students, and then checked if there are if there is information available from the company, because some companies, and we really noticed that there is a different approach to transparency, and this is also, I would say, there's still a lot of room for improvement in the future there. So some companies don't really talk about security features and also privacy things. And then we also tried to find like white papers. For example, Sessions is very transparent about that. Makes it very easy to understand, even if you're not very technical. So I can really recommend that.
Right, and we'll of course be amplifying this via the CyAN LinkedIn network as much as possible. Anything that Greg deigns to drop in us to publicize. Now, the talking about that. Okay, is the project is still in motion, right? It's still running. The research project is still ongoing.
So our goal is that because from our side, our goal would be that the next cohort, which will come in a few months, right, will take over and keeps that project alive. Because as you can imagine, the problem here is that they are moving, right, and it could be that this messaging platform is amazing, and then it gets bought out by a bigger company, and suddenly it's not that great anymore. And I think it should be kept up to date, and that's our goal.
This specific example, if I understand correctly, you want this to become kind of an ongoing living resource for comparison of privacy features.
Exactly, and yes, John. So I just let me add here that it was a core ideology at the beginning. What I asked the team to consider here, and that we should care about the privacy project just like a beautiful garden. And the garden is never done. Garden always requires focus from the farmers, right? And from the gardeners, right? And it is exactly envisioning what privacy requires, to take due care all the time. So the fundamental idea was to prepare something which should be kept alive always by the next cohort, the next class that is coming in. And my research team was very open to do this, and I think they have accepted this ideology right away when I communicated it to them that this should be going like this. And in this point of view, it is quite very critical to keep this alive, and each and every cohort should add to it. And but most importantly, each and every cohort should be doing a reflection. And at Emlyon, we think that flexibility is key, continuity is always key, but we need to grow ourselves with this attitude of giving feedback, giving a feedback to the earlier research, and maybe correct it the next year, or add to it, or take away from it, but garden it, right? And this attitude is one of the core values of the project, because privacy is not a project. Privacy is an attitude, and this was something which was taken as a core value by the research team.
It's an interesting approach that rather than taking the output focused attitude that most I guess masters and PhD programs tend to have. I'm writing a paper. When the paper is done, I will get my degree. I will graduate. Basta. Turning into more of an ongoing effort that people are contributing to as part of their academic growth and experience. So this is something to consider. I think that other schools might, there are other universities and graduate and postgraduate institutions that do these kinds of ongoing resource capability developments, I guess. I can't name any off the top of my head. I know they exist, but I think this is something where it could be a very useful tool for anybody who is listening from a university, for example, to not focus on the individual students or candidates' final output, but really linking them into this kind of ongoing activities garden, as you put it. I was smiling before because I'm looking at my garden out the window. My garden is pretty much done. It's a Sahara, so I don't think really saving that. I'd like to give you guys a chance to give any kind of closing comments. I'd like to wrap it up with any wisdom that you have. Let's talk about your suggestions for new talent or institutions, what they can do and should be doing better in terms of developing and encouraging their candidates, and for industry, government, anybody who is a stakeholder in this whole giant challenge of getting more people, more good, talented, and knowledgeable people into the industry. And both of you guys, maybe Greg, you want to start?
Yes, sure. I think the attitude of multidisciplinarity is a core attitude and value. That it is very much also a working method as well, John. That you don't really only need to be open for new aspects if you're looking at a certain problem or a certain research, but you have to respect other ideologies as well if you are taking a look at something to be solved, right? Because privacy can also be looked from the angle of encryption, and encryption can in many times be a boundary for law enforcement if you're looking at it from the point of view of investigations, right? So that's just a prime example how one value can be a significant boundary at the same time, right? That's one thing. The second thing is that material knowledge is critical, and at Emlyon, we are trying to prove that lexical knowledge and material knowledge is one of the key and core fundamentals of human thinking and human creativity. But we also need to grow skill sets, and I think together with my esteemed colleagues at Emlyon and with our leadership with Professor Saban, we truly think that MSc education should not be focused only on classroom, but move them out from the classroom, make the students live knowledge, make it useful really. And at the end of the day, for example, with the privacy assessment research project, we have also proved that, yes, it is very important to prove that even an MSc research can deliver value to anybody who is interested. It is important to show the students that they can already deliver in course of their education. So multidisciplinarity is not only about science, it's not only about the classroom of the Emlyon Business School in Lyon, it's global. We are global. The students get global education, global views, and not only classroom view, but also practical and useful delivery to anybody who is interested for the results of scientific research.
I like the multidisciplinarity idea because that's something I've been saying for ages, that a good cybersecurity person, regardless of what their focus and their skill set is, they have to know business, they have to know law, they have to know geopolitics, psychology, technology, rhetoric, even creative writing, Florian, maybe you'd like to make some observations based on your experiences, again, to any step. What would you like someone to do better and differently?
Yeah, so I can just agree with Dr. Dzsinich, especially in that point of saying to connect the students with professionals. I really enjoyed that part about Emlyon, to not only hear from someone how it works, but also like a person that can say, I'm in this area and I really know that this is how it works. So this was very exciting for us. And it was also nice because some people also had the chance to get a job through this way, because I think right now there's still a problem, like if you come into this field of cybersecurity being not very technical, and for a first job in that field, this could be a problem, because people sometimes, when they hear cybersecurity, they expect someone technical. And I think that's also something to say to recruiters, be more open to non-technical people. I think also in the field like cybersecurity, it should be more open to non-technical people. And I also want to say something about the privacy. Privacy, like the digital privacy, is a very interesting topic. It's a bit, I would say it's definitely different to cybersecurity, but it's still a very interesting topic. And I think in general, it should be valued more, or it would be nice in the future. In general, yeah.
We are all hoping that, especially GDPR will sensitize more people to not giving their information willingly to whom. Just remember, if you don't know what the product is, you're the product, and so is your data. It's worth something. So yeah, and I thoroughly agree. Again, I just like with Greg, I wanna agree very, very wholeheartedly with your point about quote unquote non-technical people, because cybersecurity is not about technology; it's about capability. And for example, cyber threat intelligence analysis. Some of the best intel analysts I know, they come from, for example, political science or economics backgrounds, because it's just such a broad set of, as Greg mentioned, interdisciplinary skills that's required. Risk manager, auditor, edit, etc. These are all areas that regardless of what your skill set is, even if you're an artist by training, for God's sake, a linguist, there's going to be something in the industry for you. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I think this is a bit of a change from some of our usual topics, but as mentioned, I try to keep these conversations as broad as possible. For, since CyAN's mission is really to educate and inform a very, very wide stakeholder community. I will link to your projects, to your LinkedIn profiles, whatever else that you'll send me, to Emlyon's page, and of course to the Cybersecurity Advisors Network. We are open for applications for information security and cybersecurity professionals, again, in the broadest multidisciplinary sense. Check out our blog, check out our other videos and our media channels that we'll also link to in our description. And thank you very much again for your time. And I wish you all the best of success in Frankfurt, Florian. Greg, we'll see you on the next board meeting. And best of luck. Happy hunting.
All the best. Thank you, gentlemen.